You're listening to Whispers of War.
Hello everyone and welcome to Whispers of War, show number 16. I'm your host Sil, and let's just jump into the action. How was my week in Warcraft? Didn't do that much. I think some of you might know why, but I did manage to put some hours in just because I needed to distract myself. And I've leveled a little bit more on the baby warlock. Now, I didn't make much use of that buff that we had for the 14-year anniversary, if I'm really honest. I really only used it to get my reputation grind going on my rogue. So that happened. I think my warlock is now almost 45, so not very far until 60. But I'm a little bit like, I don't really know if I want to continue leveling the low levels right now, because, I did ask this on Twitter just to get it confirmed. In 8.1 the leveling will decrease, the need for what you need to gain levels. So I'm a little bit like, well, if they do the XP reduction then, why would I work really hard to get to 110 or 120 now? So I'm debating just really focusing on my level 110s so that they go to 120. And I don't think I want to continue doing it on the Horde at the moment. I really want to see the Alliance side, but the problem is trying to find an Alliance character that clicks with me. For the Horde side, it wasn't that difficult because I absolutely adore my rogue and I really like the playstyle. For Alliance, that, is a harder choice at the moment. On my main server, I basically only play Horde. I do have some Alliance. I think, when I say, I mainly play Horde, I think it's almost like 50-50 now on that server. So I have a 112 Druid and I have a 114 Hunter. And I'm just thinking if I have any other high-level Alliance characters. Now, I don't think so. I think the rest is all like below 60 or maybe 70 at a push, so I don't really have any characters that I can immediately dive into the story, and I'm not going to boost just because it's Christmas soon and I can spend my money on much better things than doing that for a boost, if I'm honest, especially with the XP reduction coming in soon. I hope soon. So, no, not going to do that. I don't know if I want to play my Hunter or my Druid. I don't really have a feel for either. And I know that some of you can say, oh, just roll a Demon Hunter, because that will, it doesn't take you that long to get up to 110 with that, which is true. I don't know. I think that's probably like with Death Knights and Monks. I have a little bit of issues with the newer classes, like I know the Death Knight is not technically new, but not like the basic classes we got in vanilla, and I just don't know if I want to dive into the whole Demon Hunter thing. I guess I could try and do it, but I don't know. I do have to say, I really do love Rogue and Warrior just because you're hitting things in the face, and that's a nice difference from me being playing ranged all the time. So I think that's why I really adored Rogue. Now, I know that a lot of people say, actually, that's why you need to play Demon Hunter, because it plays fast-paced and almost the same way. But it feels a little bit chaotic to me, Demon Hunter, because it's so over the place that I'm like, oh, I don't know what's left or right. So that's what I'm a little bit afraid of with playing a Demon Hunter. I think I'm going a little bit more towards the Druid, if I'm honest, but I don't know if I want to. And I know that sounds really weird, but I don't know if I want to play a hybrid class. I'm very happy just playing pure DPS. I don't know how to describe it. I just don't really know if I want to play my Druid. Maybe it's because I have such a long RP history with her, and I know that all the non-RPers are going, oh my god, you're so sad. But it's very difficult for me to to get back to this character because there are so many things and memories and everything associated with her. And I find that difficult to not see all of that when I play her. But my hunter, which started out as a night elf back in Burning Crusade days, and then I changed her to a Draenei, and now I changed it to human because of the rep bonus. I thought, you know what, if we're doing this, we might as well just change the rep bonus. Yeah, kind of boring, if I'm honest. I'm really sorry for all you people who play humans, but I find it quite boring. So, I'm debating turning her back into a night elf just to get, you know, when we get the night warrior look and everything, that would look so cool on her. But yeah, so I'm debating either druid or hunter. I have to say, leveling with the hunter was significantly easier than with the druid. I think, you know, pet aggro I don't think it's to be underestimated. My pets have lovely names. I have a fox called Mulder and things like that. And of course, everyone knows that I have Ducky, my dinosaur. So, as much as I do love the hunter, there's something about it that doesn't give me that gratification I get from the rogue. And maybe it's the fact that I'm stabbing people in the face. So I'm actually debating, if I go hunter, maybe I should try survival. I don't know if there's any survival hunters listening to this podcast who can tell me a little bit more about it, and if it's worth it. So I might actually try that out. If I would play druid, I would not go feral. I am just not enjoying feral one bit anymore. I think I will probably go boomkin. So it's either going to be one flavor of what's it called? One flavor of hunter, either beast mastery or survival, I guess. Or it will be boomkin. So if any of you guys have a little bit of input, then yeah, let me know. Also, my warlock got accepted into the guild, so it's really nice seeing some green chat again. I think I might actually ask if one of those 120 odds can be put into the guild as well, just because it's nice to see green wall of text when you're leveling or just doing stuff. I have not really that's also my fault. I haven't really made an effort to talk to people that much due to what is happening in my private life at the moment. I log on and do my things at the moment, how much I want to do, but I'm not being really social. So yeah, so that's also a little thing for if people message me in game or on Twitter and I don't respond much, or I don't respond at all. Don't take it personal. It's just at the moment that I see it, and I appreciate what a lot of you have said. I really, really do. I think you guys are amazing and really, really warm-hearted. But for me at the moment, I even like doing my normal things during the day is a very, very tasking thing. And I do want to keep paying the mortgage, so I am going to work every day. But yeah, after that, I spend most of my time with my boyfriend and do some things in game to distract myself. Being social is not something I can do much, but I still want to podcast. But it is taking a little bit of, you know, extra to actually, because I can't just put a podcast out without actually playing the game. So I do want to put that effort in, but just a little bit to explain it all. But yeah, that's my week in Warcraft. I have not really settled from last week. I know I said that I wanted to have an RP character. I have to say, it might be the lull before 8.1, but it's very quiet everywhere when it comes to RP. Or I might just not be there in the right times. But yeah, everything seems to be quite quiet. But I also think that at the moment, I don't think I could concentrate on RP as it is anyway. I think what I'll do is just look at my characters and think, okay, what kind of interesting backstories can I write for them? And we'll see. I mean, maybe then in a few weeks when I feel like being social, at least I have my backgrounds fleshed out. Luckily, the computer is still alive. That's also a little bit of an update. So, yeah, it's all still going well. It must have really been that CPU fan. It sounds like a plane is taking off in my room, but you know what? as long as I can play my games and I can podcast, I am one happy bunny. So all going well. Other than that, my reputation, I now have hit Exalted with the Zandalari and with the Honor Bound, so I'm quite happy with that. I made sure that I did the Harvest Feast buff that you get, the 10% plus the 14% of the buff for the anniversary. So that's 24, and I think now it's also the week of the World Quest, something that you get like extra experience or something. So it goes really quick to get your reputation, because my Champions of Azeroth actually is almost there. I think I'm like on 80% or something from Exalted. You still have to do quite a lot of world quests without any buffs to get it up there, but it doesn't feel like it will take forever anymore. So I'm just, every time I see an emissary quest for that day, and it's one that I still need, I just do it. So it's now Champions of Azeroth, Voldenai, the Tortolans. Am I missing one? Oh, Talangi's and Talangi's Expedition. Those 4, and they're all halfway through Revered. That's the next one to Exalted, right? Isn't it? So not too bad. I'm okay with everything. I'm still doing my stuff, but I don't really, I haven't done any raiding or any dungeons, which is a shame. I've only done 2 dungeons so far, and I've done only like the first wing of the raid in LFR, just because, I don't know. Something's stopping me from doing it, and I don't perform that bad as a subtlety rogue, if I'm honest. I don't have the patience at the moment. So that's what I've been doing. Now this is completely unrelated. It's more a little bit of Blizzard stuff, so I'm really sorry for those who only are interested in World of Warcraft. I have to say that I've also started picking up some of the other Blizzard games at the moment. I actually pre-purchased Rastakhan's Rumble because trolls, for one, and it's been such a long time that I actually played Hearthstone, and I really enjoyed it in the beginning, and then that people start building decks and it becomes really complicated. I had that with Magic the Gathering as well. You get into the starter thing and it's all fun and games, and then all of a sudden people are like, you need to have the meta for this. I don't even know what they mean with the meta for whatever. And you need to craft this and then, make it synergy. The last time I heard anything about synergy, it was about gem and holograms. That's all that, it says to me. I don't want to put too much work into fairy crafting about decks. I just want to have fun. So it's not like I want to rank really high anyway. I don't want to get number 1 ranking or anything like that. I just want to have fun with my games and play some solo adventures and maybe play against people. But I thought, maybe with this new expansion coming out, let's get back into it. And some of you have given me really, really good tips. And I am very well aware that it's very difficult to get into an expansion at the end of the year. But I'm going to try it, so I pre-purchased the Rastakhan pack. So I spent way too much money, but if I get some standard games. And I've played a little bit on Whizbang. Is that the card? I crafted it. I disenchanted the golds that I had duplicate, and I had enough to craft that card and play some random decks, and I actually really enjoyed that. I just did some practice games and it was all good. I really, really enjoyed it. So I might start doing that a little bit more. And yeah, that's what I've been doing in Hearthstone. So that was fun, and I did some games in Heroes of the Storm, because that's also one of those games that I wanted to get back into. I'm only like level 45 or something, but I am enjoying it. Just seeing your World of Warcraft or other, world realm game characters all in there is actually quite a lot of fun. It reminds me back of my League of Legends days, but less toxic. And I don't know if that just means because I haven't really encountered anyone in Heroes of the Storm who's that toxic just yet. I'm sure it will come, but for now I'm enjoying myself in both games, and I'm still enjoying World of Warcraft. But I do feel that sometimes you need to go back and do some other stuff. So that's what I've been doing. And I just need to settle on a alliance character right now. So I need some input. If you say, you need to level a druid, do that. Level your hunter or level a demon hunter because you won't regret it, then I will do so. So that's really what happened in my week. But someone who is much better at World of Warcraft than me is the lovely Ro from Realm Maintenance and many, many other podcasts. I had a lovely interview with him, and I hope that you guys will enjoy it just as much as I had with interviewing Ro. So I will talk to you after the interview. And with me today, I am very honored to have this person on my show. I've talked to him several times. It's the wonderful Ro.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to be on. It's been a while. It's good to talk to you again.
It really, really is nice to talk to you again. I mean, we did try several weeks ago before my computer decided to die on me. But, take two, and hopefully now it will all be perfect.
Well, not only that, but I mean, like, you just think about it, and I've been doing this thing for close to like a bit over 6 years, and I believe this will now make, if you include my show, this will make the 4th different WoW podcast that you and I have had a discussion.
That's so true.
That might be a record.
You know what? I think it is, and I'm hoping that this will be the one that I'm just sticking with, and hopefully in all those years I can build it up now. Here's hoping, at least. So, Ro, for everyone who, I would surprise me, but people who don't know you, can you tell the listeners, your place in the podcasting world and everything else that you do?
Sure. So I'm best known for creating a podcast called Realm Maintenance, which started out as a podcast which covers all of the other podcasts that are talking about World of Warcraft. And I started that up because I wanted to do a WoW podcast, but I wanted to do something that was a little different from what everyone else was doing. And even back at the time, there was like a good 40, 50 different podcasts talking about just World of Warcraft. So I figured I could go a little bit meta with it and do a kind of a twist on it. And my goal was to not only talk about WoW, but to talk about these other shows and help promote these other shows and give these other shows more exposure. That led to eventually doing interviews on every show with different people from those podcasts. Mm-hmm. And as things grew and our love for Blizzard games grew for a lot of us, I expanded that coverage to Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, all the other games covered by Blizzard Entertainment, and all the podcasts that were covering those games. And it's been a heck of a lot of fun. Since then, I've created a couple of spin-off podcasts, one just for World of Warcraft, because sometimes I just want to talk about WoW, another one for Hearthstone, because I freaking love Hearthstone. And it's been one heck of a ride. I never would have imagined if you told me 6 years ago that I would be involved in 4 different podcasts and that I would have recorded over 400 total episodes. I'd say you're freaking crazy.
Yeah, I remember finding your podcast for the first time, Realm Maintenance, and I thought, oh, what's this? But, it's don't take this the wrong way, but in the beginning you're like, this is a strange concept for a podcast talking about other podcasts.
No, it is. I agree.
But actually it works so well because it's really nice because you're a good podcaster, you're really good at it. And then you because of your enthusiasm and how you talk about other podcasts, it makes you as a listener want to check out these other podcasts. So I think it's been a godsend to have a podcast like yours that will actually, because there are so many podcasts out there now, and it's so difficult to find something that, some people might think, oh, maybe this, and then it doesn't suit them. But because of your podcast, you get a good insight of what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not hard to find podcasts talking about World of Warcraft. And I definitely try to make an attempt to, cover the more popular podcasts out there. But sometimes I feel that the best moments for the show as a whole is when I get to feature some of the smaller podcasts out there, and then listeners become aware of those shows for the first time. And then when I see the feedback and I find out that these shows are getting new listeners because of the coverage that I help give them on the show, those moments are really special for me. And I think that's when I enjoy doing what I do the most.
That's really lovely. That's good to hear. So with all your endeavors, I know this is a sidetrack and I have not put this one on on the questions, but
you can ask me anything, whether it's on our list or not. I'm fine. Okay,
cool. Because I know that you were quite involved with all the podcasting community in Blizzcon. How was it this year for you?
My personal experience of BlizzCon was amazing. It's funny because you hear kind of an overall tone of meh or it was okay, and then you hear stuff about Diablo Immortal brought up and all that stuff, and you get the feeling from a lot of people like, this BlizzCon wasn't the best BlizzCon, but whatever. Now, my personal experience of BlizzCon, it was freaking amazing. I thought that World of Podcasts and Calm Before the Storm went along great. I've been involved. I've had a very direct involvement in running and organizing the World of Podcast portion of Calm Before the Storm for about 3 years now, maybe 4. And that went as well this year as it has any time before. It's probably the best year for World of Podcasts yet. And I say best not only because it went well, it was executed great, but it was also the least stressful for me at the same time. Like in previous years, that event, on the day of the event, I have been the most stressed out person in the world. This year, everything just worked. So that was great. BlizzCon itself had a few awesome opportunities, a couple magical moments happening. I don't think anything can ever really top the moment when you are the first person asking a question at the WoW Q&A for the third year in a row. It's funny because that's something a lot of people haven't really caught on to, and I don't talk about it too much, but it's interesting when I see someone go like, hey, didn't you ask the first question last year and the year before? I don't need a title like Red Shirt Guy or anything like that, but it's been fun and it's been cool, and I like to think that I ask, interesting questions.
Absolutely.
But the great thing about that whole Q&A, though, is not what I asked, but then what the guy behind me asked, because after I asked my question, in walks this guy saying, hey, when is the Horde getting its war chief back? and of course, I'm talking about Chris Metzen being on, and I didn't know that. He wasn't even in line. He was seated a little bit behind us and to the right, and I actually knew what was happening about, I want to say, 10 or 15 minutes before the Q&A started. I was informed that, hey, this is going to be happening after your question. And if you go back to that Q&A, you might hear me start to ask a question about Warfronts, and then I change my question to about agency and WoW. I was so flustered knowing that Chris Metzen was about to ask a question that I was starting to ask the question, a different question from the one I had prepared earlier. So then I switched back and got back on track there. But then after Chris asked his question, he was in a bit of a hurry because he had to actually take his kids somewhere. So he was pretty much like dropping into BlizzCon, asking his question, and then getting back on the move. This was something that, to the best of my knowledge, wasn't planned until the morning of, where I think the morning of Scott Johnson had reached out to Chris, asked if he'd be interested in doing this. Chris said yes, and so then logistics and plans had to be made to work how to get him in and out and all that stuff. At any rate, after Chris Metzen asked his question, and he was walking out, I took the opportunity to get up from my seat because I'd finished asking my question, walked up to him and said, I know you're in a hurry and don't have time to take a picture. That's fine. And I just, extended my hand. I just wanted to shake your hand and say thank you for everything you've done. And he smiled, shook my hand, and said, my pleasure. And that was a moment.
Nice.
I did not think I'd get to shake Chris Metzen's hand this year. And that was probably one of the best moments of the 6 years that I have attended BlizzCon.
That is so cool. That is so cool. I think that was a great moment, I think, for a lot of World of Warcraft players, just to have Chris ask that question.
Oh, absolutely. It was, the dude has this charisma and this intensity and passion for the game that's still there, even though he hasn't been with the company for a while. And when I talk about the magic of that first opening ceremony that I went to for BlizzCon, I mentioned how there's nothing quite like the feeling of that first BlizzCon opening ceremony that you go to in person. Having Chris up there asking that question, I was feeling tingles. It's like, man, yeah, you just look at this crowd and you look around at people and everyone's just smiling and everyone's just having a genuine good time. It was the polar opposite of everyone's reaction to Diablo.
I felt so bad for the guys doing that Diablo thing because I'm sure that they worked hard at it, and it's just,
and here's the thing. I'm probably going to download Diablo Immortal, and I'm probably going to try it and play it. I played the demo, and I didn't hate it. Diablo Immortal, I think, is going to do fine. I think it's going to make a lot of money. It had the unfortunate role of being the last thing presented in the opening ceremony for a convention geared primarily toward PC players, and that created a lot of backlash. The game itself is not a bad idea. I don't think it's a flawed game. The fact that they're partnering with NetEase is not the end of the world, because newsflash, NetEase has been involved with Blizzard for years and years. They have like a good part of Blizzard's stock. So it's, I think a lot of people overreacted, and some may still be overreacting to this whole Diablo Immortal thing. I think it will wash over. That being said, I do think that this happening in BlizzCon taught the people higher up in the company a lesson that when it comes to reveals and presentations and stuff like that, know your audience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Know your audience. I think Diablo Immortal would have been a great reveal for something like PAX, just like how Hearthstone was revealed at PAX. I think there was a reason why when Hearthstone was revealed, it was done outside of a BlizzCon, because it was a mobile game. Well, it was geared to be a mobile game, and it was something new and something very different, and they wanted to try a different approach in how they revealed and announced that thing. I think they should have taken a similar approach with Diablo Immortal. And going forward, we know that there are other mobile games that are in the works. I don't think you're going to see them revealed at BlizzCon for the first time. I think Diablo Immortal's taught them a lesson, and they will use other avenues to reveal and announce those projects. And that's fine, and that's okay. There's no reason to hate this game. People just want more stuff for the PC. We'll get it. Just give them time.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like I said, like you said, it's probably a learning thing now, and I think it's just such a stark contrast with the ones that we've had with Chris Metzen leading it all in, and then all of this a little bit. Mm-hmm. When I watched it, it felt a little bit of I don't want to use the word downer, but it didn't feel as epic as it has with the years before.
Sure, it was kind of, a lot of people bring up the whole, funny because this is something Metzen was involved in himself, people bring up the whole Geek Is year, mm-hmm. When Cataclysm was just about to be released. And I can understand that. I think people go into BlizzCon with a really high level of expectations And because there's been some really great moments from BlizzCon and some really great and solid years from BlizzCon, it can be difficult to not temper your expectations when it comes to BlizzCon. If you attend BlizzCon in person, I feel if you're going to BlizzCon in person and you're going to BlizzCon for the purpose of the reveals and the announcements, you're going to the show for the wrong reasons. I'm not saying don't go for that reason, but I think that you're going for the wrong reasons and you're setting yourself up to potentially be disappointed. I think the primary reason you should go in person is to experience things that you can't quite experience from watching BlizzCon on the virtual ticket. Being in the crowd and the atmosphere for those esports, being there in person is nothing like the toned down experience you get from watching on the virtual ticket. All the people that you get to meet, all the cosplayers that you get to see and stuff like that, and just the community outreach and everything like that. That's why I go to BlizzCon in person. It's not as much for what happens at the convention itself, but what's happening all around it. So it's like, I don't know. I think when it comes to BlizzCon, people just have to understand that yes, you're paying quite a bit of money, but at the same time, you're not necessarily entitled to X amount of big news and big reveals for the money you're spending. That money is being spent to put that show together and such, but I feel like you're kind of paying that money more for the ability to help create this atmosphere where a whole lot of special moments can happen.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's good to hear because, for me, people in my position, we have, I wouldn't say we have no other choice, but the chances of going to BlizzCon are very, very slim unless you have.
Oh, international travel. Yeah. It's terrible.
But I think, if you hear that, because I heard from a lot of friends that the virtual ticket was a bit lackluster this year. And I mean, in all fairness, I didn't even bother with that. I think the in-game bonuses could have been a little... Yeah, exactly. And I just thought to myself, but if you go there and you have that same experience, that's such a big amount of money. But then hearing that from you, that's actually really good. That's also really, I think, good to hear from people who go or plan to go next year. And then just go, actually, you know what? Okay, maybe I've seen it on the virtual ticket. It wasn't that great, but at least I have that experience of going there then.
Oh, yeah. My biggest advice to people, if they do go to BlizzCon in person and it's their first time, my biggest advice to them is if you can see it on the virtual ticket, consider not doing it in person. Like, do all the things at BlizzCon in person that you couldn't necessarily do on the virtual, that you couldn't necessarily get the same way by watching it on the virtual ticket. And that means going to the parties that happen before BlizzCon on Thursday. That means going to the panels in the areas of the convention where you might get an experience like being able to meet one of your favorite voice actors, or talking to a developer on the game that you like the most. Those are the kinds of opportunities and experiences I really think make BlizzCon worth it. Absolutely.
I hopefully in the future I'll win the lottery and I can go. Okay, so we had the former war chief, making an appearance. Let's go back to where it all started for you, and I want to know, first of all, Horde or Alliance?
If you're going to have me absolutely pick a side right now, if I have to choose one side, I have to choose Horde because that's what I've been primarily playing. I will say that as a player, I've enjoyed both sides of the story. In beta and PTR for World of Warcraft, I always play Alliance side, simply because I want to experience that side of the story as well. And by testing and playing on the Alliance side, I'm not spoiling my experience of the Horde side of the game. So that's how I choose to approach Battle for Azeroth this year. And it's been going pretty well for me so far. The stuff that I've seen from the Alliance side of things with the Darkshore content on PTR is pretty freaking awesome. And I can't wait to see how the Horde stuff plays out because I'm genuinely interested in both sides of the story. But my main is a Horde player. Is a Horde character. I play primarily on Horde for rating, progression, and all that stuff. So paint me red. But if I were to open up my jacket, you would probably see an Alliance logo somewhere.
I like it bifactional, like many of us who like to know more about the story. Mm-hmm. So I know that in the past you were a warlock for a very long time. Yep. Are you still playing warlock?
So I had my warlock, which I'd had since the beginning of the game. I technically still have that character. I didn't delete the character. I did name change my warlock at the end of Legion because I am playing on a role-playing realm, but it's not like I've role-played my character when I'm inside the game. But that being said, I've kind of had a headcanon for Ro, the warlock character, and I felt like at the end of Legion, his story came to an end because Ro was actually not originally from Azeroth. The headcanon for him was he was from another world, and being a destruction warlock, having the artifact, the Scepter of Sargeras, allowing you to open portals to other worlds and places, this was, in a strange way, this was a method for me to end Ro's story. This was a method for Ro to go back to where he came from. I mean, he wasn't on Azeroth by choice. So before the artifacts got corrupted by using them to depower the Sargeras' sword, Ro left. He had seen the Legion had been defeated. He saw that there was still conflict between the Alliance and the Horde, and he was done with it. He decided it was time to go home. So Ro's story ended. I name changed my warlock and race changed it to a Forsaken. So my warlock is now this Forsaken character who, headcanon-wise, is a devoted follower of Sylvanas. Okay. And I'm probably going to get that character up to 120 in 8.1, especially with all the improvements that are being made to leveling up alts in the game in 8.1. I think my warlock's at like 111 or 112 right now. I've been maining a Shadow Priest, a Nightborn Shadow Priest, and I played Shadow Priest for a short period of time, I want to say in Cataclysm, and thought it was pretty cool. I've been playing a Shadow Priest primarily in this expansion, and I'm having fun with it. I'm having a blast. It feels kind of Warlock-esque, but at the same time, I have the ability and utility to do things like switch to Discipline for leveling. I love the AoE options that Shadow Priest has if you choose the right talents, and it's just been a nice change of pace. And the whole kind of story with this Nightborn Shadow Priest character, it hasn't been fully fleshed out yet, but I see my Shadow Priest character as someone who's not necessarily on Sylvanas' side, but is sticking around to see where things go.
Okay, that's an interesting point of view. I like things like that, a bit of background story for characters and their views. So you already said a little bit about, your Shadow Priest, and we all know that 8.1 will bring some changes. So I'm just going to dive into like the two main things we're going to talk about. 8.1, what are the things that you're looking forward to? Is there any apprehension that you're like, oh, I'm not sure about that change, or do you think it's all positive?
So there's nothing really in 8.1 that I'm concerned about. We are going to experience our second Warfront, and I'm curious to see what lessons the team has learned from the Stromgarde Warfront and see what they do with Darkshore, because although I've tested a fair bit on the PTR, I have not actually tested the whole Warfront thing yet on the PTR. So that's going to be a fresh experience for me. I'll be interested to see what makes Darkshore as a Warfront experience different from Stromgarde. I am definitely excited about the improvements that are coming into Island Expeditions. That's been Island Expeditions, and this is kind of also answers another question I think you're going to bring up in a bit, so I'm answering it ahead of time.
Okay.
If you were to ask me like what I'm most impressed with Battle for Azeroth, a lot of people seem to be kind of critical and harsh on Island Expeditions, but I've loved the system simply because it harkens back to the days of scenarios in Mists of Pandaria, and I loved the Mists of Pandaria scenario system. So Island Expeditions to me has been kind of, although I log into WoW every week to raid, Island Expeditions have kind of been my core excitement for the game from a gameplay point of view, not necessarily from a story point of view, because there's not much story to be told in Island Expeditions. But really excited about Island Expeditions, and all the improvements that they're making to it sound wonderful. Expeditions need a bit more variety, they need a bit more adjusting, and they are getting that, and I'm glad to see that they're putting the work into it, because with by contrast with scenarios in Mists of Pandaria, I felt like they never, while we got more scenarios over the course of Mists of Pandaria, they never really evolved and grew. It was just kind of more of the same. With Island Expeditions, it looks like they're honestly making tweaks and additions and improvements to the system to make it more enjoyable over the course of the expansion, to still give us a reason to participate in that system, and I'm very excited about that. I'm really excited about the raid for 8.1.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you have a raiding experience where you approach it differently depending on which faction you're playing is an amazing thing. I think it's a concept that is long overdue. I've talked about having, separate raid experiences depending on what faction you are for years now. How cool that would be. That would be one way to emphasize the whole kind of war in Warcraft, as it were. This is the right time to have things, to have a raid like that. I thought that we would get a raid like this as like perhaps the last raid of the expansion, but we're getting it now, and I'm hoping that this raid will be, from a player point of view and a developer point of view, enough of a success that we see this kind of thing happen again, maybe even this expansion. Wouldn't it be great if like the final raid of the expansion is an even bigger Horde versus Alliance conflict where big stuff goes down?
That would be amazing. That would so just embody the whole Battle for Azeroth theme, I think. That would be really, really cool. Are you looking forward to your Shadow Priest changes?
I am, but I have not played them. On the PTR, I've actually been playing I've been playing a Destruction Warlock, and Destruction Warlock feels fine. The Shadow Priest, I know it's getting improvements, so it's almost like just how I don't want to spoil myself for the Horde story. I don't want to spoil myself for the improvements that Shadow Priest is getting. That might seem a little weird to say, but when it comes to taking in this content, when it comes to testing and stuff like that, I try to test and involve myself in stuff that I'm not going to be spending a whole lot of time with when that version is actually live. I try to test and stuff like that because I use that time to do things that I know I normally wouldn't do, and to do things that I've had a minor bit of interest in, but likely wouldn't be part of my everyday process. So that's how I've approached that. I know Shadow Priests are getting buffs. I've seen reaction from people saying that, hey, yeah, these buffs are a good thing. Shadow Priests are in a much better place. And hearing that is really all I need before 8.1 actually launches in terms of whether or not I'm excited about the class.
Yeah. So overall, you seem very positive about 8.1. How did you feel about the all the reveals at BlizzCon when they talked about 8.1.5, I think it was, and did they mention 8.2?
They did.
Yeah. How did you feel about all those things that they were discussing?
So I want to kind of take them a little bit to a point and wag my finger at them and say, you guys said you weren't going to talk about 8.1 and that you were just going to talk about new content. That's not the case. They spent 20 minutes of their WoW panel recapping everything they said about 8.1, and that kind of frustrated me a bit because I'm like, we know about all this stuff. You don't need to recap it. You said you weren't going to talk about 8.1, and here you guys are talking about 8.1. So that kind of actually irritated me. I wanted more time to be spent on what's coming up ahead. That being said, the 8.1.5 and 8.2.5 stuff seems like good quality of life improvements and little things coming back. I love Brawlers Guild. I always play Brawlers Guild content, so I'm excited for that coming back into the game. I did not expect there to be a Mecha Gnome or Junker Gnome kind of dungeon and zone and area that we're going to. That whole Mega Dungeon thing is interesting, and I'm looking forward to playing that. I'm curious to see how they use Ashara in 8.2. Because obviously 8.2 is the rise of Ashara. My question is it going to be the fall of Ashara in the same patch? And I'm really hoping it's not. I'm hoping that this 8.2 patch with Rise of Ashara, I'm hoping that it's just a setup and a way to bring that character into the spotlight. And do we fight her in a raid? I'm cool with that. I'm down with that. But just like I don't think we're going to necessarily kill Jaina Proudmoore in the 8.1 raid, I'm hoping we do not kill Ashara in the 8.2 raid. I think there's a lot that can be done with that character. I think it's possible to defeat Ashara without actually taking her out of the picture. And World of Warcraft needs some strong villain characters, and Ashara just has so much potential and so much history that would be a shame to, just as we're starting to bring her into the spotlight, take her out of it. Yeah,
I absolutely agree with that. I just hope we don't get a kill fast moment, like, you know, Tempest Keep is just a setback, or just
well, I mean, I don't have a problem with giving Ashara a setback kind of thing, where we can defeat her, she can escape, and she can come back either later in the expansion or come back in a future expansion altogether. I think the whole setback thing, although it's a bit of a meme in the WoW community, I understand why sometimes you need to have your bosses to have setbacks so that you still have bosses to fight. We go through 3 or 4 raids, an expansion, and when you're killing off all of your major villainous characters, you need to either create new characters or bring back old ones that were dead, comic book style. I think the biggest problem that World of Warcraft has from a storytelling device is the protagonists are more often than not always the same, or at least they have more life and time to develop and grow. The antagonists, in many cases, don't get nearly as much time to develop and grow and to give us a reason to take them down. The reason why fighting the Lich King was such a big deal is because he had so much time to expand and grow as a character from back in Warcraft 3, the RTS. Garrosh, as hated as he might be by some players, Garrosh is an example of an antagonist that actually had a significant amount of growth and change and development as a character, and it felt like a bigger deal to take out Garrosh. So I want to see more of that with Ashara. I want to see more of that with future bosses as well, and we'll just see where it goes. I definitely think that there is potential for this conflict between Alliance and Horde to not be settled entirely at the end of Battle for Azeroth. I would like to think that this Alliance and Horde conflict has a lot of interesting stories to tell that could go into the next expansion or two.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all these upcoming stories, and we'll just have to see what happens with Ashara. But as long as she doesn't get like a weird crystal in her chest, like Kil'jaeden, I'm okay with that.
Let's not sever her head, attach it to some robot in the future.
Oh God, no! Please not! Please not! Okay, so that was a bit about the future. Now let's go back to the past. So we are celebrating WoW's 14 years of existence. There's a big event in game with the buffs and everything. How did you start your love of World of Warcraft? And then we'll roll into the whole, these 14 years and how you've experienced the events that Blizzard has every year about them celebrating.
Yeah, so I've been playing for, I guess, maybe 11 or 12 years now, or maybe it's more than that. I started playing in Burning Crusade just before Zul'Aman got released as a raid. And prior, I would say a year before I started playing WoW, or maybe it wasn't even a year, more like 6 months before I started playing WoW, I hated World of Warcraft so much. World of Warcraft was the worst thing to ever happen to my gaming experience. Why? Because I was playing Final Fantasy XI, which was the first online Final Fantasy game, and World of Warcraft was stealing my friends and players away from Final Fantasy Online, and it pissed me off. I'm like, what the hell? My guild, my link shell is falling apart because everyone's leaving for this stupid World of Warcraft game, and I just want to camp Jailer for another 2 days and try to have a chance at this drop that has a 5% chance of happening after waiting literally 2 days for it to appear and spawn and kill. And then I started to realize, you know what? I'm getting tired of waiting for these world bosses in Final Fantasy for literally hours and days on end to appear, only for a small chance to get loot. I'm kind of getting tired of the Japanese MMO way of grinding. I thought that the Final Fantasy story was great, but I'm like, yeah, this is getting a bit old. The GM or the leader of the Link Shell group I was with in Final Fantasy Online was playing both games. He was playing Final Fantasy and he was playing World of Warcraft. And it's like, he convinced me to try World of Warcraft. And I'm like, okay, I guess, fine, sure. When in Rome, whatever. And that's what led me to trying World of Warcraft out. Had like a free week or a free month or something like that. And there was no turning back. I got sucked in. They got me.
And here you are now. How are you finding these, the fact that World of Warcraft has been around for 14 years?
Makes me feel old. It makes me feel extremely old. It's funny because, and you go back older than that, my first MMO I played was really one of the first MMOs out there, Ultima Online, which wasn't even a 3D game. It's like this 2D isometric MMO. And to think that WoW has been around for almost a decade, nearly a decade and a half, we are getting to the point where within a few years, we're going to have legal adults that do not remember a world where WoW didn't exist.
God, that's scary. That's so scary thinking that.
So yeah, it's such a strange concept. I never expected to still be playing a game for this many years. Usually, when I have liked the game or enjoyed a game, it'd be a console game or a PC game. I think the longest I would play it in the past would have been 2 or 3 years, but World of Warcraft, I played this thing for 11 or 12 years now, and kind of as a result of it, I've been playing other Blizzard games for well longer than I played other previous games in my gaming history. I didn't expect I'd be playing Hearthstone for 4 years. I didn't expect I'd be playing Heroes of the Storm off and on for as long as I have been. So yeah, it's Warcraft has really changed how I just immerse myself in gaming, and it changed my habits as far as gaming goes, and I don't regret it one bit. And it really, I mentioned it in Twitter that I would not be the person I am today without World of Warcraft, and I saw that sentiment expressed by so many people over and over again. Warcraft is not just a game. Warcraft is this vehicle, this experience which has literally changed thousands upon thousands of lives, and you don't really see anything like that on the same kind of scale from other games. I mean, sure, games have the power to change. Any game has the power to change lives, but nothing, I believe, has done it quite like World of Warcraft has.
Mm. Do you think, because 14 years in the game, we only got, and I'm saying only, but it's compared to what it is, it's not like a big thing. You get a buff, which is great, and you get some items and things like that. Do you think next year, with 15 years, they're going to go all out, or?
I remember the 10-year anniversary was when we got the Molten Core throwback. Mm-hmm. We saw how that went.
A lot of people signed up for it because, nostalgia.
Right. We might get something special for the 15th year anniversary. I'm not sure what it would entail. Especially because time walking is around now, right? And we have time walking raids. So maybe the 15th year anniversary might introduce a new time walking raid, like time walking Ice Crown Citadel.
That would be cool.
Yep.
I would even be happy with Blackwing Lair, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Cool again.
Let's see. I really don't know if anything big or special will be done for the 15th anniversary. However, I do have a prediction to make, and this may make some people unhappy, but I could see them going this direction too. World of Warcraft Classic has been announced for summer of 2019. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling it's going to get delayed.
Oh.
And if it does get delayed, I wouldn't be surprised if then they waited until the 15th anniversary of WoW to launch it.
Okay.
That's a wild prediction for me for right now. I think that WoW Classic is going to be delayed because I think they're going to spend a little extra time to make sure they get it right, and then they may just decide, you know what, let's just launch WoW Classic on the 15th anniversary of World of Warcraft, because why not?
That would be really interesting. Now I'm almost dug. I want to fast forward now to a year just to see what happens. That's going to be very controversial. Yeah,
that, or they may use the 15th anniversary of World of Warcraft as the right timing and window to launch World of Warcraft 3 Reforged, because that just has a release date of 2019, but they haven't given it an exact date or stuff like that. So doing Reforged on the 15th anniversary of World of Warcraft might be interesting as well, especially when you consider that Reforged has so much story and moments that kind of feed into the history of WoW.
Yeah, absolutely. It would tie in so nicely with getting back to, and especially now that you have time walking, I think it would make more sense for people once, that option is there to play, to get even more into the story, and it could push people back into trying old content. Yeah, that could be interesting. I'm looking forward to all of this now. I want to know if you're right. Okay, so 14 years, pretty long time. I'm quite impressed with that for a game.
Yeah. Now,
we already talked about impressions, and that you're very impressed with, the island expeditions. But has there been anything that you're a bit like, okay, this Not good, or at least I'm not that happy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. On the polar opposite, the thing that I am most frustrated and least impressed with in Battle for Azeroth is the profession system.
Okay.
Professions, from my point of view, are terrible. And I think it's because I played another MMO for a while, here and there, off and on, where I saw a profession system that was so fleshed out, that had so much more has so much more potential and so much more depth, and that's Final Fantasy XIV.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do with their profession and crafting system is freaking amazing. Not only do they have a wider variety of things to craft, well, they have one reason to craft so many things, because housing exists. World of Warcraft player housing would be great anytime now, thanks. It's never going to happen, but oh my god, I wonder just how many people they could bring back to World of Warcraft if they finally said player housing. That has to be like their next big reveal. If they finally just bite the bullet and say, okay, you want player housing, you're getting it. Player housing could save the profession system.
I think so. Can you imagine if you can get like things like carpentry and all those things? That would be so cool.
Yep. But right now, professions it feels underdeveloped, it feels stale, and it's disappointing when you choose a profession like Inscription and you can't craft anything from the epic crafting material that drops in the dungeon you're raiding in. It's like, why do I have 15 Sanguicells in my backpack if I have nothing to use them for? That being said, they have mentioned that Sanguicells are going to have an alternate use for everyone. In cooking, you'll be able to use Sanguicells instead of fish for cooking feasts. So, okay, great. I guess we use the blood of raid bosses to make feasts now. I guess that's a thing. It's a little morbid sounding, but at least that's a use for them, I suppose. I would love for Sanguicells to be able to be cashed in for freaking Anchorweed, because my goodness, Anchorweed is hard to acquire, and just raid materials for like consumables and stuff like that, the prices for them have been just stupid high. And I think the reason why profession map prices have been so high is twofold. I think not only is it because the scarcity of some of those materials, but on top of that, I think that people just are less engaged with professions as a whole, and some people just don't want to be bothered with the whole process. They'd rather be playing something else or doing something else with their time in WoW. So the combination of those two things makes, trying to buy flasks and feasts and stuff like that, or materials to make them, that much more of a pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't even bothered with any professions this expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I find it all very confusing with the star system and getting things that I don't even have. So, no, I get your frustration. When you play Battle for Azeroth, do you ever have a moment that you're like, okay, I wish I would have known this? So would you have a tip for the listeners that you maybe found out by yourself or anything else?
I don't know if there's anything that I really discovered that I've been like, oh man, I wish I'd known this earlier. But if I were to give a tip to people, it's not to be afraid of war mode.
Okay.
War mode can be fun. War mode can be enjoyable. I would advise that if you do go into war mode, that you try not to do it alone, that you go with at least one or two other people. And I think war mode, I think the bonuses from war mode are fine. They could be maybe ever slightly better, but it's still, I just like the concept of war mode because it's fitting with the expansion. It's led to some enjoyable moments where things just happen during your questing experience that you weren't expecting to have happen. And I feel that just having there's a part of me that sometimes wishes that war mode was always turned on, that you couldn't turn it off, and that seems weird to me because for me to say that, because there more often than not I die in PvP combat, but at the same time I think the conflict in the game and the potential that the conflict has to bring people together to rally against the other inside of that could be interesting. So I'd like to... They're trying really hard to bring the faction conflict more into focus and to encourage PvP gameplay. And I'm not against PvP, and I think that there's a place for PvP and for everyone to participate in it. I just wish people were less hesitant and less scared about it, and I think there's potential for more group play to happen from there. I would say give War Mode a chance. The other bit of advice I have is, especially if you are not a Mythic Raider, if you are just raiding normal or heroic content, do not obsess yourself with artifact power. Play the game as much as you want to, not as much as you need to, or rather as much as you feel you need to. The quickest way to burning out on this expansion is to spend far more time playing it than you really want to play it. And I feel that the way that the artifact power system is set up in Battle for Azeroth, it kind of drives that point a little better, that no, you don't have to grind to millions and millions of artifact points to get where you want. Week by week, the amount of points it takes to get to different levels of for your Heart of Azeroth, that shortens out, so they scale that down with every passing week. So just go at your own pace. Do not overstress about it. Again, I have to say that applies mostly to people rating normal and heroic. Unfortunately, the way that the system is set up, I think that if you're a Mythic Raider, you kind of do have to put in that work, because you want to be at a certain level for, the big progression race once it goes live. But yeah, pace yourself. Understand that you don't have to play this game 24/7 if you don't want to. And not that anyone plays it 24/7, but
that would be scary if people did.
but yeah, just realize when you think you're starting to feel burnout, and if you're starting to feel burnout, it's okay to play other games. It's okay to do other stuff. I think that Warcraft as a whole has changed and evolved and grown at the point where it realizes that some people don't want to play this as their primary game all the time, and some people just want to pop in, do a few things, and pop out. And there are experiences in the game tailored for that kind of game style. And I'm kind of in that place right now. Does that mean that I enjoy WoW any less than I did years ago? Heck no. I just participate in it differently, but I'm still engaged with it. I'm still listening about it. I'm still talking about it practically every day.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very valuable tip, because people feel that pressure, but I think it's good sometimes just to hear you don't have to constantly. You don't treat it like a second job.
Yeah.
Now, for you, I know this is a firm staple for you, the Warcraft community.
Mm-hmm.
What has it meant to you?
I think the best way to put it, I mean, there's the obvious answers I could give regarding with the community has a lot to do with everything what I do with Realm Maintenance and the podcast and all the stuff I've done with World of Podcasts, Calm Before the Storm and stuff like that. That's all tied to community, right? Mm-hmm. In some ways, when it comes to podcasters, I've been this kind of volunteer third-party community manager of sorts.
True.
And it's cool, and I enjoy it. I wouldn't be doing this stuff if I didn't enjoy it. But I think more importantly, just the community that I've been involved with and that I've been happy to help support and grow along with. it's created opportunities for me to forge a few really strong friendships and to meet some amazing people. And my life is all the better for it. They're some of the people that I spend the most time with at BlizzCon for the past few years are among the best friends that I have in my life, and it's just really, it's really special to me to think that, you know, that this game and the community that's a part of this game basically is the catalyst for forging those kind of friendships. So as a person who going into this game was, and still is to a degree, kind of an introvert. I mean, I usually have a bit of a shell. Mm-hmm. I don't make it to the water very often. I'm sorry. I'm not that kind of turtle. But I can be a bit of an introvert, and surprisingly enough, it's easier to come out of my shell when I'm just a voice on a podcast, right? But when it comes to like actual, you know, offline life interactions with people and stuff like that, bit of an introvert. But this game and the experiences that it allowed me to participate in, both online and offline, has allowed me to be a bit more of an extrovert. I would say somewhere in between now. I'm not as hesitant to reach out to people, to network, to connect with people, and to find out more about who people are, to find out what common interests we have, and to just form some really great friendships for it. So the community means a lot to me, because without the Warcraft community, I think my life would be a far lonelier place.
Well, that's so... I really like that, you know. It's really nice to hear. Now, of course, the Warcraft community has also a bit of a darker side.
It does, but I choose to often keep myself away from it.
That's very good.
The only times in which I involve myself in the darker side of the community is when I feel the cheeky need to poke fun at the community. I think Taliesin and Evitel, who have been on your show as well, I think they approach that in such the perfect way. These two have such... they are the most optimistic, positive people about World of Warcraft, and I think they approach the forums of World of Warcraft and the people who are critical of the game in the best way possible. And those two in particular, Talius and Evitel, man, to me, when it comes to being representatives of the WoW community, I don't know if they'll listen to the show or not like that, but if you two are listening right now, Talius and Evitel, you two are freaking role models for me. I want to approach the community and the game the same way you two do, because, man, you guys are positive, and you guys are able to poke fun at the people who are all angry about the game, but you do it in the best way possible. I wish I had that kind of talent. But yeah, it's the best way to not get swallowed up by the bitterness and the criticalness of the game is to not expose yourself to it. I know there are YouTubers out there who are very critical about the game. If when you watch that kind of content, you don't feel as good about the game, if that's having an impact on you, my advice is stop watching that content. Stop listening to that content. If you're checking out a podcast where the people are nothing but angry and upset and critical about WoW, don't listen to that podcast. Now, that being said, I do a podcast, The Rolling Restart, which is a WoW podcast, and there are episodes where we critique WoW a lot. But when I critique WoW, I'm not doing it from a point of, I think this game sucks. I'm doing it from a point of, I feel this part of the game makes me feel kind of meh, and this is why, and this is how I think it could be better. It's all about tone. It's all about approach. And when you don't like the tone or approach of how people in this community feel about the game, I think the best advice is to move on to someone that makes you feel better about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, people can be negative and critical about things. Also, because God knows I've been. I think it's very much, but I've listened, like what you said, I've listened to podcasters who were so negative, and a part of me was like, why am I even listening to you? You don't want to play this game, so I don't understand why you're playing this game if you're just going to hate everything about it. It's just, get over yourself and play something else then. So, yeah, no, I understand that, and I think it's good to be critical of games because I think Blizzard is listening a lot more to what people say now and how things can be improved, but they can't do anything with people just moaning and bitching.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, no, absolutely. Right, Ro, we're going to go to the final question, which is always a bit of a strange one, I know. If you have to theory craft or think about, what you would want in the future or a bit of a rumor thing, what would be your whisper?
Juan Samdi is the final boss of Battle for Azeroth.
Oh my god, that would be so amazing, but I don't want him to die.
I mean, yeah, we're getting whispers and stuff leading to us to think that, N'Zoth this and Old Gods that. But, man, I feel like Juan Samdi has been playing a very long game. And I know there's content in 8.1 that touches on him and his relationship with Vol'jin and stuff like that. And I don't want to necessarily spoil any of that. I'm talking about this and approaching from this as someone who, let's say I know nothing about 8.1. And what if, contrary to what data mining might imply right now, what if Juan Samdi has something to do with why Vol'jin said have Sylvanas be war chief? What if Juan Samdi and Sylvanas have a working relationship that no one really knows about yet? I mean, Juan Samdi deals with the souls of the dead and such. Sylvanas wants to bring the dead back to life, and Sylvanas wants to basically kill everyone so that there isn't anyone alive, so that her Forsaken and stuff like that can be repopulated and such like that. I don't know. I feel like Juan Samdi could potentially have a far bigger role in this story than all of us think. And all the Old God stuff, I think we're planting the seeds for that in this expansion.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't really dive into Old God stuff until the next expansion or the one after it. Because, slight spoiler alert, there are things also rumbling around in Northrend. We're finding things out about Bolvar Fordragon, the newest Lich King, where you gotta wonder, man, are we going to be interacting with Bolvar again in a very direct way sometime in the near future? But all of that said, I would love to see one of the big twists in Battle for Azeroth be, oh, you thought it was going to be Old Gods at the end? Nuh-uh, it's Juan Samdi.
That would be so cool. I would look forward to that. I really look forward to that. That's cool. Ro, thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
I always love talking to you. If people want to find out more about you, where can they get into touch with you?
Oh, the easiest thing to do is to follow me on Twitter at Rowow. That's RHOWOW. And of course, I do a few different podcasts out there. If you are looking for World of Warcraft specifically, I'd suggest checking out the Rolling Restart. That comes out every other week, and that usually involves me and a rotating selection of co-hosts talking about a variety of different topics in WoW. And then if you happen to play Hearthstone, there's a podcast I do called Hearth Casual, which is talking about Hearthstone from a more casual perspective. And then, of course, there's Realm Maintenance. If you love podcasts about Blizzard games and you want to find more, whether it's for World of Warcraft or otherwise, you can go to realm-maintenance.com. You can find Realm Maintenance, Rolling Restart, or Hearth Casual on any major podcast app. Spotify is kind of a bigger thing nowadays, so I usually suggest checking that on Spotify. And last but not least, if you're into a little thing called Dungeons and Dragons, whether you play it or you like listening or watching people play it, I'm involved in a Dungeons and Dragons game, which is also put up in podcast form as well. That's called +5 to Hit. You can hear my adventures as a female halfling Tempest cleric on that show, and it's a lot of fun. And I think of all the podcasting stuff that I'm involved in, recording-wise and stuff, I think that show is... I'm most excited to do that lately of anything else, because it's just been a blast to kind of step out of what people may know me for. It's like, not a warlock here. I'm not summoning demons here.
I'm definitely going to subscribe to that, because I love listening to those sessions for people that play D&D. That's really, really, really fun to listen.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. Thank you so much again for being a guest.
Again, thank you for having me, and I look forward to being back on the show some point in the future. Hopefully, still Whispers of War.
Yes.
I want this show to keep on going and to keep on growing. You've had a lot of amazing guests on it still, and I'm really glad that you are back in podcasting about WoW, and I really hope that you remain engaged and passionate about it in the years to come. Let's definitely talk again before the 15th anniversary.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ro.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I certainly enjoyed talking to Ro. It's always been great to talk to him. And like you said, this is like so many times that we've talked on their different podcasts. So hopefully in like maybe a year, that would be a nice podcast goal. In a year, I can talk to him again, and we'll see how far this podcast has progressed. But you guys have input as well. So the topic of this week was a little bit of, the history of World of Warcraft. How did it start for you? Did you make use of the event for the 14 years, the little buff? And you guys all responded, so let's start with all your replies on Twitter. Frasley said, loved it. Using the buff still until it goes away. I can't have enough corgis. Played 2 to 3 years vanilla and now playing fully since 2016. Open beta in 2004 and I was hooked. Wow, that sounds, really, really, really interesting. So that you played in the open beta in 2004. That seems like so long ago now, doesn't it? But that's really cool. I'm happy that you got hooked then, because otherwise we wouldn't have the Friendly report. Jarvinator said, yes I did. It made leveling a lot easier this time around. No, I haven't seen all the corgis yet. I'm still working on that. In reference to that, because you might go corgis, that's that little toy you can get, or could get at the event to see all the corgis in game. I think you really should, if you haven't had the toy yet. Anyhow, let's continue. I've been part of the player base since 3 days after launch. My dad bought the game since he was into MMOs at the time. Did not like the graphics and said, you go, have fun. So I've been playing it since. Oh, that's really... So it was actually your dad who wanted to get into it, and then it was you who picked it up. That's really, really cool. Has your dad ever wanted to get back into it? Or has he seen you play it? Because I would be quite curious about that. Blind Ink Poet said Warcraft 3 was my gate to Azeroth. It was our LAN game. When WoW came out, my friends and I jumped immediately. Now I'm the only one still into the game. Maybe you can get your friends back when Warforged comes out. And then you can, maybe do LANs again and then slowly get them back into World of Warcraft. That might be an idea, right? Jordan said, saw the Big Bang Theory episode originally, what really got me to stick was a guy in CSGO, talking about it around Legion launch and the Gilneas starting zone. I do love the Gilneas starting zone. I love the atmosphere in that. Exclaver said maybe a repeat of info, but I started as a kata baby thanks to a buddy at work. I moved over to CTR within a few weeks of the guild starting during MOB. Oh, that's lovely. That's really, really lovely. How is CTR nowadays? I do see a lot of people who follow the Whispers of War account with CTR behind their name. So a big hello to all of you. That must be so nice being in a mega guild. I would love to experience that one time just to see what it's like. Crystalline said, I started in Kata. My boyfriend at the time's big sister was really into WoW, so I started playing too. My boyfriend didn't play very long, but I've been playing on and off for 7 years now. I still have my original Blood Elf Hunter. Oh, you gotta love a Blood Elf Hunter. I'm so happy to hear that another girl got you into the game. That's always a good thing. Detail Bearer said, I started at the very end of Lich King. I was mourning City of Heroes, and a friend I was staying with had 2 accounts. We started a pair of characters and made it to Duskwood, and I was hooked. Well, Duskwood is, a really, really cool area. I mean, I think you can see where my preferences lie, right? Gilneas, Duskwood, so Drustvar. So I think where my butt pulls me into games like that. Resurgent Esports Broadcasting said, my friends played so much Warcraft 3 in middle school. I was not familiar with MMOs at all when I got WoW. I almost returned it after the first night playing a Night Elf Druid. I made a Tauren Warrior the next day to give it one more shot, and the rest is history. See, sometimes it does help to play a different class. I used to play Druids back in the day when no one knew what to do with Druids except being mana batteries, really. MS said, Vanilla, a group of us left UO. I think that's Ultima Online. I think so. And Star Wars Galaxies to start in WoW. I rolled an Orc Shaman on Warsong. I still play him today, even though he isn't on Warsong anymore. Lots of adventures, good times and bad times, but he is my dude. Oh, that's so cool. And I think Orc Shaman, that's a really, really... I do love my Orc Shaman, but I still... My Troll Shaman is still the guy I always go to. Graves said, I played Warcraft starting with Warcraft 2 LAN parties back in college. Played through Warcraft 3 and expansion, and then heard about Warcraft MMO that was coming out. It took me a while to try it out, but I downloaded the trial right after Zul'Gurub came out. I loved it so much, my girlfriend, now wife, bought it for me. Funny though, she bought it for me for Christmas. So she wrapped it and forced me to wait a full month before opening it and picking up where I was on the character. Still my main to this day. That's brilliant and cruel at the same time. But yeah, that's really cool that your wife, did that for you. The Crosshair said, Vanilla. Anyone who played PC probably played Warcraft. So, not a big leap. My first plan was to make a rogue dwarf. I ended up an undead warlock. Makes sense. I think there are many people who would say that makes sense, Crosshair, so nothing weird with that. For myself, how did it start? I never played Warcraft 3. I have, after I got into World of Warcraft, for some weird reason. So... My then boyfriend at the time, he really loved the RTS. He said, oh, you need to, there's an MMO coming out. So, okay, I thought, why not? I'll play that. Got the game on the first day of launch in Europe. And I was very almost tempted to return it the next day because I was dumb. And it basically said, oh, you don't need a credit card or you need to pay money. The first month is free. And I thought, for a free month, I'll give it a try. But as soon as you make an account, you have to put in your bank details. And my hackles were raised immediately. And I thought, I'm not paying immediately. What is this? I have to keep in mind, this is like 14 years ago. And I've never played anything online like that. And I heard things about that you can have the cards, the game time cards. But they weren't in the shops, not yet. So... I was a bit like, oh, well, I don't want to play this game. And then I tried it again, because I Googled a little bit. I don't know if it even was Google back then. I think it was Firefox. And and I heard that more people had said, no, you can just put your bank details in, and you don't even have to put valid bank details in. It will just, it needs something. So I played a day after launch. And that's how it really started for me. And like I said in the previous podcast, a few days later I found a collector's edition from Vanilla, and I thought, you know what, I'm completely addicted now. I want the special collector's edition, so I bought that, and for me the rest is history. I've been playing on and off, really. I've also played Warcraft 3 in between, just because I wanted to see everything. But I will tell you this now, I've never really finished Warcraft 3, because at a certain point, I can't remember if it was a mission or something, but something didn't go well on my PC with it, and I just gave up. So I'm hoping that Warforged will make that all better. I have pre-purchased it for myself as an early Christmas present, even though I probably won't be able to play it until like sometime next year anyway. So yeah, that's how it all worked for me. And like I said, I made use of that 14-year anniversary buff. I'm hoping we'll be getting something special with 15 years. That would be really cool, but we shall see. Maybe some Molten Core-esque events. I'm still hoping for Blackwing Lair, if I'm honest. But we shall see. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for your patience, because I know the show is a little bit later than normal. Again, with everything that's happening, if you want to follow my private account, it is at McMonkeys. So it's MC and a monkeys with a Z. If you want to know what's going on, I don't know if I will be here next week. I might have to emergency fly to Spain really quickly to see how things go, basically. But I will do my best to bring out a podcast. But yeah, it's a little bit waiting. We don't know what's going on. Anyhow, thank you all for your patience. Thank you for all the downloads. Thank you for all your kind words and all your input and being amazing as always. If you want to follow the show, you can do that on Twitter, of course. Go to Twitter and then at whispers_of_war. You can also email the show whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com, and if you want to see old show notes, do that at whispersofwar.podbean.com. I hope you all have a fantastic time in Azeroth or in Hearthstone or in any of the other worlds in the Nexus, and I will hopefully see you guys again next week. Bye bye.